Thank you all for joining us. We're really excited to have you here today and to offer up some of our perspectives on the insights of the benefits of outsourcing. And we're excited to hear from all of you. As Amy mentioned, a couple of ways to ask questions, whether it's in the chat. You do also have the opportunity to unmute and ask that directly. Feel free to make this as interactive as you can. So joining me on today's webinar, our first session, through this first 60 minutes, I'm Jenny Huteri. I'll be moderating my esteemed colleagues, talking to you about their specific topics. Angie Ziegler is going to be talking to you about outsourced payroll services. Heather Huteri will be speaking about full outsourced accounting services. And Mark Jans will be talking about staff augmentation and some special project work that we do. Starting off, just the concept of outsourcing. Why outsource? What to outsource, and how will it work for you? Why you want to outsource, why you want to bring in consultants or providers to handle some of these things that you could do on your own. You could employ the people, you could handle these activities. One of the reasons is growth. Growing more rapidly certainly provides a lot of hurdles, a lot of stresses within your business. Outsourcing some of those activities allows you to scale, allows you to have the right people at the right time. It's hard to hire a fractional employee. This will help you to always have the right number at the right time. It also allows that flexibility. There might be a seasonality within your business. There's certain peaks and valleys where always having someone or a team of people full-time might not be the right fit when you do have those fluctuations. There's also the benefit of the top talent. You essentially put the task of recruiting, looking for and training that top talent on your outsourced provider. Those outsourced companies are generally industry leads. They're respected, they're known within the industry, and I think they do a great job of recruiting really great talent that they're able to provide to you. Other reasons might be the company focus. We've seen this time and time again, and the panelists might speak about this, is a lot of times you can handle a lot of those tasks yourself. It's just a matter of whether or not you should. Does it make you lose your focus? Do you not have the right amount of time to focus on your mission, your vision, what those strategic initiatives that you have are, because you get so focused on trying to handle the other things that need to happen within your business, but perhaps don't need to be done by someone on your team. There's also the growing number of compliance requirements and the risks that come with not meeting those requirements. We've seen a lot of legislative changes in the last couple of years, a lot more compliance needs, a lot more sophistication of what goes into those. Those create kind of a time suck of your team, as well as the risk that happens from not meeting those requirements. A third item is subject matter experts. At certain points within your company's or organization's journey, there will be some subject matter, sophisticated item, some new situation that you're not yet familiar with, your team hasn't handled before, and you're really reliant on a team for their experience, their expertise, their knowledge. Outsourcing that can give you access to that talent when you need that individual knowledge. But you don't necessarily want to outsource just everything, or maybe you do. Maybe you want to be particular about what is appropriate to outsource and what you should retain in-house. So some things to consider in making those considerations. Should you be doing the task? Is it part of your core competencies? Is it something you dread doing or someone on your team dreads doing? Would outsourcing that save you time? And I think when we talk about that, when we have the conversations with our clients, it can be hard to put a cost factor in that encompasses everything. It's really easy to measure the direct, the known costs. What's harder to measure is the opportunity costs. If you were to use that time within your organization differently, what would be the benefits? That's not always a known number. That's something that takes a lot more consideration than just what the cost of engaging with an outsourced provider is, but something we want you to consider. And then the lack of expertise. This can be something challenging too, because you don't always know what you don't know. If you haven't been in the situations yet, you haven't had the opportunity to work through that challenge or solve that problem, you might not yet know what you don't know. that can create a risk. So will it be right for you? Some key considerations that we've made that we think are really imperative in a great working relationship versus one that can be more of a challenge. So upfront, can you communicate the necessary information in a virtual or a fractional relationship? If you're too reliant on someone within your company walls that you've got access to essentially 24/7, that may be a challenge when they're an outsourced option versus your own employee. And are you committed to a win-win situation and a win-win relationship? Is there a mutual respect between both parties? Do you communicate really openly? Are you responsive? Are we all meeting our deadlines so that when information is requested, it's provided, and the rest of the conversations that happen around it are all within the timelines necessary in order to have effective results? I think the future of outsourcing is great. We've seen it over the last couple of years as we've become a much more digital world. We've seen a lot of expansion of outsourcing because the relationships have really expanded without the need for all of the in-person time that we typically saw as a hurdle from having a successful outsourced relationship. Now, nearly all of us, nearly all of our clients are really comfortable communicating in a virtual environment. We have so much more options to effectively exchange data and information, to simultaneously work on that same information. We've got so many better options for meetings and really making those interactive, even when they're not in person. We're also seeing a shift, whether it's a generational shift or just a mindset within leadership of our companies and organizations, where they really want to focus on what it is that they do, and they want to outsource more and more of the things that need to be done, but take away from their mission, their vision, and what they're trying to achieve on a daily basis. So I think there's a big push in outsourcing because a lot of us that are on the other side providing those services know that we can do that really effectively for our clients and really free up both their time, their energy, their creative juices to be able to focus on what's best for their company and their organization. Now we're going to get into each one of our topics, starting with outsourced payroll, and I'm going to turn it over to Angie soon. These are the things that we're hoping to hit through with each of our different service areas, and want to bring those to your attention as you're thinking about them. As you hear each of one of our presenters speaking, they're going to tell you a little bit about their service area. Why do clients choose to outsource those things? What they should consider, what you'd want to consider between what you'd outsource and what you'd retain. Some of the benefits of outsourcing, the keys to a great working relationship. And then at the end as a whole, we're going to just hit on the pricing considerations, things that help drive pricing either up or down, whether it's if you're working with us or another outsourced provider. So Angie, I'm going to turn the floor to you.
All right, thanks, Jenny. All right, so kind of like Jenny just reiterated in the last 10 minutes or so was the who's, what's, whys of outsourcing. We're going to take a more focus in now on our services that we offer. Like she said, we are seeing a trend of more and more businesses making that decision to outsource. And what we're going to talk about specifically on these slides is the payroll outsourcing. I'm hoping on this next couple of slides, it's going to really help you guys, understand and navigate like how to make these decisions, knowing why you're going to outsource, what you're going to outsource, and really about how it takes both the business and the outsourced provider. Both of us have to come into this together to make this be a successful working relationship so that we can, at the end of the day, make sure that everything comes out in accurate form and compliance driven. So in an outsourced payroll offering, what we do at Eide Bailly here, we have different service platforms. If you're doing the full payroll service platform, you're going to include all 4 of these boxes or these bubbles that are on the service offering. So really a full service is the full suite. Working with you, your clients, your payroll contact, working on the time and attendance, the paycheck calculation, the tax withholding and reporting of those tax payments, even down to like garnishments, vendors, new hire reporting, all things that are required to be filed within the either federal or state government. On top of that, we also have the quarterly and federal state compliance that we have to be doing. on a quarterly, and then the next one, the annual basis. But what I want to also, reiterate too, is that as we continue, these states are getting more and more complex. Understanding what state you're going into, where your employees located, your remote employees, which became very popular during COVID, all the different things that you have to offer to a employee in a different state. Just having that ability to have that conversation with someone who understands it and actually researches that. Things that we have to be really aware of is like paid sick leave, paid family leave, locals and disabilities. And then as we continue to see this, not just the states are getting complex, but cities are now coming in and actually adding in something that's above this, what the state is offering. Annual compliance, this is our traditional year-end stuff, W-2 reporting, annual forms that the states require, and then overall payroll consulting services. This is something, having that conversation with us. You're having an audit, you got an unemployment audit to serve to you, so now you need to fill out that information. Let us help you do that. As your company's growing, you want to maybe see about a nexus study, like what would it be like if my employees went into a certain state, and what is the obligations that then we have to offer them. Taxable fringe benefits too is something that just trying to have that conversation on what is and is not taxable to your employees is something that we can have that back and forth with our clients on. Some of the things that we also want to look at with you is when you're trying to have these conversations with us is, our number one goal should always be your employees. Are they being paid timely, and are they being paid accurately? So these should be the starting spots of why should you outsource your payroll. Other great reasons on thinking about if you're kind of on that the edge of maybe should I or shouldn't I is confidentiality is huge with payroll. Very, very sensitive information, and with how much fraud and identification that's been stolen that happens is just one of those things that moving it out of your office, out of like your software, and making sure that information isn't easily attainable. It is making sure that we're also providing you a secure environment for you to be accessing that information. Errors on a payroll situation, the errors, the penalties are extremely high for a payroll service. So a lot of times when clients come to us with IRS notices, the amount that they're paying into that IRS for a mistake on possibly a late tax payment, maybe a late tax return, the amount that they're being charged from the IRS is almost probably the same amount of fees that they'd pay to actually outsource this and not have to worry about these IRS notices. Let alone the other reducing the errors is, not just the IRS, you have the states, you have retirement reporting, vendor reporting that also comes into it that you could get penalized on issues with that also. Lack of resources that, internally, our team is very specialized on their knowledge. So we make sure that they have current up-to-date training, working in seeing any updates that come through. We're involved in a lot of different associations that we get daily updates on what states are doing, what cities are doing, and what federal rules are coming in and what's changing. Some of the other things too is just, giving your employees that access tools to be able to have their information at their fingertips. Sometimes desktop service or internal service, you can't offer that to your employees. So just letting them, they want to go buy a car and they need to have all their pay statements or W-2s, and having that ability to have that on like their cell phone or a portal that they can access is another good reason of why outsourcing your payroll can be a good win for not just you, but for also your employees. So as you guys, consider the opportunities to, look for outsourcing, either, the different topics you're going to be hearing about today, the working relationship between you, the business, and the outsourced provider, is just the ability to have clear, concise communication with each other. Let us help you navigate those really hard questions that, either you have or maybe your staff comes to you with, being able to provide them an answer that you can feel confident and comfortable giving. Real-time issues that happen, paycheck errors, missed punches, working with us on those issues, questions that come up on employees, it happens every year at year end. Why does my W-2 say this? I didn't realize this was taxable. Should this have been taxable to me? So just being able to have that back and forth and being able to feel confident is a big reason about outsourcing, your payroll and information out. Having real-time data is also really important, in being able to, not just you, but your employee be able to see things on demand that's the kind of world we're living in today. Everybody wants to have on-demand access to anything that they have. As we continue to kind of navigate payroll and outsourcing, payroll's been a big spotlight, probably in the last 5 years, but even more so in the last 2 years here with COVID. And, just making sure that we're being continuously helping you understand what's happening. What do we need to be careful with? The IRS and the SSA had a W-2 audit that happened where they were actually running through W-2 and Social Security numbers, names, and people were receiving tons of IRS and SSA notices. Helping you navigate those can be kind of a scary situation. The COVID credits, all the different payroll forms that changed, dealing with all the COVID reporting, and just these state-by-state rules that continuously change. Having that reliable party to be able to ask questions to can really help knowing that you're making a good business decision. From a client perspective, our system is a cloud-based software, so we want to make sure that the biggest point we want to make with our clients is that what does it look like for your team? We bring you on, onboard you, work with you, have conversations to make sure that everything's being set up accurately, and making sure that you also know that the system is accessible to you and to your team. We can turn features on, turn them back off, just making sure that you're able to, have an online solution that will equal real-time answers. So there's no waiting for information that's needed. You're able to get information off the system. You're able to run your own reports, and have standard reporting options also. So one of the things is, it's just kind of a nice option for you to be able to work with us, and we can both be in the system and have those conversations on real time. From a client perspective, or from an employee perspective, I should say, our time and attendance system, it's all about getting systems that integrate together so that as you're putting things in, it can be accurate and efficient. So time and attendance is one of those that you can use for onboarding your employees, having these, I'm going to show you in the next slide, the different options that are time and attendance, but it's just being able to have that convenience for your employees, like clock in and out at your computer station. You can have it on your mobile phone, but knowing that also people travel, you can also set up some security, like your GPS locators, your IP address, so they can't just log in from anywhere. It's more of on a controlled platform. But it is something where it's easy for them, which then makes it easy for you, the employer. Also within that system, just being able to have some of those like in-out boards. Where are your employees? Who's in, who's not? Scheduling, the dashboards, if you're having to do anything with job costing. This is some of the items that we want to make sure that you realize that as you outsource, you can build this type of a professional relationship with your outsourced provider, and making sure that the ease of having your payroll moved out is that your employees are being paid accurately and timely. So I'm just going to see if there was any questions, but otherwise, I'll do see you guys in the breakout.
Angie, I have a question.
Yeah.
What are some keys of an effective working relationship when our clients are working with you as outsourced payroll providers?
Some of the keys is about turning, timely information is really some of the biggest items where we want to make sure we get timely approved time cards. If you receive any type of notice for taxes, that we're getting that information instantaneously so that we can always stay ahead and be able to help out the client. So I'd say, communication, making sure everything's on a timely basis, and asking questions.
There's probably a horror story or two. Do you have an example or two of situations where the complexity had gotten the best of a client, or they not realized the risk that they were taking and they had to respond, or you perhaps helped respond and then took over due to some of the challenges of our clients handling their own payroll?
Yeah, we've had, over all these years, we definitely have horror stories. And it's, it's painful for the client, but it's also painful because we experience what they're going through and having to try and clean up the IRS notices and the state notices. Softwares are probably the number one reason why there's most issues, is that your payroll people know enough to put the information in, but then they trust the software to do its job, and not knowing that those, desktop softwares especially, that you have to maintain them and you have to update them and you have to make sure you're on the current, any tax laws or changes that happen, you have to make sure that you're actively pursuing those. We've had situations where some people forgot to update their tax tables and wage limits change, and it caused a huge tax liability, where people met Social Security wage limits way sooner than they should have, which then causes a problem and an awkward situation between you and your employer or your employees, because now you are going to them saying they owe more taxes. And then you also, the employee, have to pay in. Now you have penalties also because you paid all that stuff in late. And a lot of times some people don't actually look at those until fourth quarter or when they're doing their W-2s. And some of this could happen back in first quarter, to be honest. So I'd say the software has probably been the number one reason why we see people wanting to outsource it.
Especially with all the changes to the inputs that we saw the last couple of years.
Especially.
Well, there'll be an opportunity to ask Angie more questions at the end as well, or you can add them to the chat at any point. We'll transition now to full outsourced accounting services, and I'm going to turn the floor over to Heather Hootery.
All right, thank you, Jenny. Like Jenny said, we're going to talk a little bit more about our outsourced accounting services that we offer our clients. And what I'm hoping to share with you guys over the next 10 minutes or so is first, high level, what do we do for our clients? How do we work collaboratively with them, and then share some specific examples of how do you decide what functions to outsource versus retain, and then show you some specific examples as well as some of the deliverables that we give to our clients and what those look like. So first, why do our clients choose to outsource? One of the bigger reasons that we see clients coming to us is when they're ramping up their company, there may not be a need for a full-time accountant right away. So normally, the accounting function's outgrown the founder, the office manager, whoever is using QuickBooks to enter the day-to-day, but it isn't quite heavy enough for them to necessarily hire a full-time 40-hour-a-week person. The next area we see clients come to us is when maybe there is that 40+ hours a week of accounting work that needs to be done, but the skill set varies from what needs to be done. Maybe 20 hours is data entry and 20 hours is more CFO level insights. And it's really hard to find a person that can successfully do both of those roles at a salary that makes sense for the business at that point in time. We also see clients come to us that just need to supplement current employee skill set, meaning we see it go both ways, where maybe they have a really good strategic minded person that's helping them drive some business decisions, but they don't have time to enter the day-to-day. We'll supplement with that day-to-day lift, or vice versa. They've got a really good staff accountant, but that person's so much in the weeds, it's hard for them to pull back and think strategically. Then we'll come in at the CFO level and assist in that way. Another area is just inability to get staff to apply and retain them. Like Jenny mentioned before, put that burden on someone else to retain top tier talent. And then it's kind of, their problem or our problem to make sure that we are training and retaining staff. And then just a desire to partner with an experienced accounting people or staff that are up to date on all the compliance things in real time. So when our clients do choose to outsource, we fill a variety of different roles for them. I've broken them down here so you can see by job titles that are easy to relate to. The staff accountant is someone, I like to say, they keep the lights on. So they're paying your bills, they're invoicing your customers, and they are doing that transaction entry and coding that accurately, quickly. The controller is a little bit higher level, but still more day-to-day and operational, where they're overseeing the staff accountants, they're layering in some dashboards and key performance indicators, tracking those for you. They're keeping an eye on the current cash flow situation. And a lot of times we have them looking at process process reviews and improvements, and layering in technology where it can help you be more efficient in your processes. But then we also bring in the CFO level, where this role is very much more complex budgeting. So thinking like by department or product line budgets, location budgets. This person's going to do some more financial statement and cash flow forecasting and planning. And they're also going to layer in some of those operational insights that are relevant to your industry. And this is a graphic that I think really helps visualize what all those different roles look like and how they build on each other. I think that what we do for outsourced accounting services has really grown in the last 5 years. And the last 5 years, we've gotten really good at those two gray columns on the left, doing the staff accountant and controllership roles. But where we've seen a lot of growth and been able to really impact our clients is by moving more towards the right into those green columns and those CFO roles, where we can align you with accountants that are very well experienced in your industry to layer in a lot of those operational data that help you make business decisions with more data behind it. So like Jenny mentioned before, it's not always easy to decide what you can outsource versus what you retain. And one of the biggest things that we talk through with clients is first thinking about how much time do you have and where is that time best spent. As a business owner, you wear a lot of hats, and it's important for you to ensure that you and your team can maintain the focus of the company. So always going back to what am I working on? What is my mission? What are our growth goals? And how does the task that I'm working on directly impact mission, goals, and vision? Also, how quick of a turnaround does the task need, and is it client facing? So sometimes it's a little bit harder to, if you need to invoice your customers right away, for example, it's harder to outsource that specific task because it's just client facing and it needs to happen so rapidly. But what we can do is help you build a system that helps you accomplish what you need to. And then our role would be helping maintain and oversee the system. And then last, talking about, and you talked on this quite a bit too, but how complex is the task and what are the risks if you do the task incorrectly? So one area that we see a lot in the accounting world is, and I've been working on it a lot lately, so I feel maybe a little biased, but sales tax is an area that we see a lot of risk when clients don't always understand the complexities of what they're selling and the different states they're doing business in. You can trigger nexus in other states without even realizing it. And when that happens, if you haven't collected the tax from your client or from your customers, and you get audited, then that state can come back and force you to pay all the tax you should have collected, plus additional penalties. So these are things that we kind of are well versed in and experienced in. We have people that specialize in these areas, so we can take that compliance burden off of your plate. But on a more positive note, we don't always just find those areas that could result in penalties. We also work with our clients to find ways and opportunities that save you money. So example number one that's been really popular lately is the employee retention tax credit, so the ERC. And how our clients have benefited from this is they were already our clients. They already had really solid financial statements that were timely. So we were really easily to pull all that data for them and see if they qualified and send them over to our ERC team to get those applications in the queue to process right away. Whereas sometimes clients that do their own bookkeeping, it took them longer to put those records together. They weren't sure if they qualified, so it cost them quite a bit of time and money to put it together to determine that. Another area is the R&D tax credit. We oftentimes will refer clients over to that team. Just by having our regular conversations with them, we can usually identify if we suspect a project or something that they're working on might qualify. We just connect them with our team, the R&D team that does that. And recently just had a client that had relatively smaller business, but a net benefit to them of $65,000 back into the owner's pocket. So super easy for us to identify and just pass that on through regular conversations. We also make sure that the financial statements that we're preparing and sharing with clients are relevant both to their business and also their industry, so that it becomes more than just a paper balance sheet and income statement. We're organizing it in a way that makes sense for them and that they can make business decisions on. And another area is that identification of areas where they can improve processes and implement technology to save time globally. There's a lot of technology out there that you can layer in that helps you be more efficient in your processes, and we see it all the time, so it's really easy for us to identify and implement those. Lastly, we have access to peer data that helps us identify areas in which you're not exactly aligning to your peers. So not saying that that could be a good or a bad thing necessarily, that you have to conform and align all the time, but it does help us if your cost of goods is 20% higher than your peers. Why is that? And can we explain that? Are there areas where we need to explore? The outsourcing experience as a whole, I wanted to just share a little bit of what that looks like and how we work together collaboratively, because it is all cloud-based. When we outsource with our clients and we onboard them, we always put together what we call is a tech stack. And a tech stack is a network of applications that they're separate applications, but they all work together for us to work with our clients and give them that end result of those financial statements and dashboards and analyses. So this visual, I think, kind of explains it really nicely, where it looks like a plumbing network and you have a hub doc up on the top left, and that flows into bill.com and QuickBooks. So these tech stacks are unique to the client, but probably aligns a little bit better with the industry, where usually we find that a certain group of applications work well together for certain types of clients. One that we use quite frequently specifically is the HubDoc Bill.com QuickBooks Online tech stack. This works well for kind of like our general service clients that offer services. So HubDoc is where we have those clients send in all of the paperwork that we need to see. So their vendor bills, their statements, all of those documents, they upload for us to process in HubDoc. We take those documents from there and do with them what we need to. So if it's a bill that needs to get paid yet, we push that over into a software called bill.com that helps us automate a workflow approval process, as well as allows us to schedule payments electronically for our clients so that nobody is stuffing and sending envelopes anymore. And both of these systems flow into the main accounting system, which primarily we are using QuickBooks Online. It allows us to connect with a lot of apps and really customize the solution for the client. And then from QuickBooks, we do flow into usually a different reporting package that allows us to layer in a few additional things, such as non-financial metrics. And these are going to be specific, again, to the industry that you're in. So in this example, we are layering in some, how many patrons did you serve last month or month to date, and what kind of services were they provided? Another area clients like to see is if they've got particular expense categories that they want to keep a close eye on. We'll give the top 10 or so in a graph form so that they can just at a glance see how those are trending. And a lot of clients also like these summary financials, especially if the financials are a little bit more detailed with a lot more accounts, detailed accounts. They like to quickly see, what was my top line revenue? How much net income do I have? And then just a quick glance at the balance sheet, and then dig in with more detail as needed from there. And I also wanted to show this forecasting tool that we use quite a bit, and what this helps us visualize, and we can work collaboratively with our clients on, is building a base cash flow forecast that talks with our accounting system, but then also layering in a few what if scenarios. So in this example, we're saying, what if I receive a bank loan? And we're showing that right alongside your base cash flow forecast. Some other areas that we do similar what ifs. Think about like, what if I add a new provider to my practice? Or what if I need to add a new warehouse? What if I need to invest in machinery? Those are all scenarios we can easily just build in real time work with you to manipulate, you know, some of the assumptions that build a lot of these forecasts. Any questions?
Heather, do you want to touch on what makes a great working relationship from two clients, two companies that might be very similar, but one produces a good working relationship and one can be more of a challenge?
Yeah, I think that we touched on this a little bit before, but if there's got to be a very set, defined understanding and process behind who is responsible for what. So we try to define that really well and have a main person that is our point of contact at the client to accomplish those goals. So that works really well. When we have to reach out to, I would say, 5 or plus individuals at the company, sometimes things can get lost in translation there. And then also it really has to be, we aren't as successful if we need to be on site and within the 4 walls of the office quite a bit. We have to be able to work virtually and with an understanding of response and turnaround times as well.
We talked a bit about our business owners or other leaders within those companies being able to repurpose their time or free up their focus on what really matters. Do you have some examples of what clients were able to do with their time and with their focus once they freed up some of the time and energy that had been put into these services that were outsourced?
Yeah, so one that comes to mind is just a single owner business. She's the only person that works in the business. And what we worked with on her to build in some, she likes to see the data. So it was hard for her to understand that concept, but she was spending maybe 20 hours a month on her accounting, doing some really detailed work. And for her, it was hard to fathom paying somebody else to do that. But when we took a look at what her bill rate was to her clients and quantified that, and even backed out some, we call it non-charge time, but time that she wouldn't necessarily get to bill out to her clients, she was still going to net an additional $6,000 if she could take those 20 hours and put them towards chargeable work and pay our fees. So for her, we were able to put it just in an actual dollar bottom line impact for her business.
And that's even a hard cost situation. And we talked about opportunity cost before, which can be really hard to quantify, but that's perhaps what she would have done with some of that non-billable time, is how she better improved her business or expanded her marketing or clientele or added additional employees.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you, Heather. If anyone else has questions, we'll take questions at the end as well. For now, we're going to turn the floor over to Mark Jans. Mark's going to speak to us about staff augmentation and some special project work we do at the firm. Mark, floor's all yours.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for spending some of your hump day time with us. Really appreciate that. You guys probably know these questions by heart by now, but I will take you through them one last time, I promise. A little bit about our service. There are a lot of similarities to what we do and the outsourced accounting group. The main difference is that we provide high-level financial professionals to assist clients with short-term needs, everything from accounting managers to chief financial officers. Our NetSuite BPO program also allows the client to access NetSuite licensing with significant discounts while they work with iBailey to get a certified team put together and improve and use their ERP system more effectively. Why do clients choose to outsource these responsibilities? We've kind of covered that quite a bit very well. Again, the need is short-term. Very often they prefer, they don't need a permanent addition to staff. The pricing from a NetSuite perspective is much better if they work with us through our BPO program. Sometimes their current revenue will not support the cost of a high level finance person on a permanent basis. Sometimes it's a reflection of the job market. They've tried and they cannot find the help that they need to solve their challenges. And lastly, sometimes it's just a matter of a fresh, unbiased opinion is often needed to bring some unique solutions to their challenges. What should they consider between outsourcing and retaining? Very often it's also a function of timing. Challenges that are short-term in nature can be outsourced. Long-term permanent demands can be transitioned to our outsourced accounting group or retained with existing staff. The NetSuite licensing program that we have is a permanent long-term relationship with iBailey. Clients benefit from increased focus and skill on outsourcing. The first thing that we provide is stress relief. Most clients have been trying to cope with the challenge on their own for a period of time, and a deadline is often looming, and we're very often the solution. The client's team can focus on the daily demands of running the company while we focus on the project at hand. Very often you'll hear people say, gosh, if we could just stop doing business for a month or 2 months and work on this specific task, we'd be able to get everything done and everything would be fine. But somehow we have to still continue to run a company and achieve these additional goals. We help with that process. Again, we talk about unbiased feedback, industry comparisons, and those things provide sometimes the missing component to achieve the goal that they've been trying to achieve. And again, we're always welcome and valued. I'm losing focus, so I apologize. I'm looking and reading, so here we go again. Clients benefiting, stress, key to great working relationship, frequent and comprehensive communication. We spend a lot of time with the client initially to get a complete understanding of their needs, and then we provide a bi-weekly status report that details what was done over the past 2 weeks and what we anticipate doing during the coming 2 weeks. The client should also be receptive to our recommendations and must be flexible, and we have to be flexible in their interpretation and implementation. And lastly, pricing considerations. A determination needs to be made as to the caliber of talent required and the time they'll need to complete the task. We often do a 2-week initial engagement just to make that determination. We've dealt with clients in as many different industries as I can keep track of. That's one of iBailey's strengths, is we have quote unquote experts in almost every industry. So we can bring that comparison to standards for the industry, as well as the expertise needed. Every industry has its own little things that need to be sorted. We'll understand that and be able to help you with them. We also have, again, accounting managers, controllers, senior vice presidents, CFO level, whatever is needed, and in a combination sometimes. It is not just a one person fits the bill for a client. Sometimes we will bring in a blend of a team to approach and attack the different challenges, assign them, complete them, and give everybody the focus that they need. NetSuite certification, we promote that amongst the team. We take classes, we get exams, we are certified. So when you have a NetSuite specific challenge, we very often will have the folks that are familiar with it and can bring you the solutions that you need. Financials, again, we talk about financial expertise. Sometimes it's a short-term challenge, it's a significant challenge, but once you're over the quote unquote hump of it, you don't need a full-time permanent staff member to address those things. We can come in, solve it, again, transition it sometimes to the outsourced accounting group so that it can be a permanent relationship, or we have some clients that bring us in quarterly just to kind of give them a review, see how things are going, keep in touch, and stay on track. Characteristics of an ideal client. Typically, these are folks with revenues in excess of $10 million. They have come to terms with the fact that they need the help, and they are willing to accept it. That's a tough thing, a tough pill for some companies to swallow. They are appreciative and welcoming of our expertise. Resistance is futile, as they say. It also isn't productive. So to the extent that they are ready to hear what needs to be said, that's fantastic. And as always, it's nice that they can pay us as well. So we have folks that fall into all those other categories. and cash flow does not allow them to retain us. We wish them well, but that's not going to work very well for us. Keys to success in an open world. Oh, I've got the baddies today. Keys to a successful working relationship. A client's open and honest about their challenges. They welcome our input and implement our solutions. They have realistic expectations. Very often we're called in because they're up against a deadline. They've had months and now there's days or weeks. We need to be realistic about what we can achieve for them and help them make sure they understand that. We will match our team members to the need. We'll make sure that we are not assigning higher level folks so we can make sure their billing is being done well. And lastly, we will develop comprehensive schedules and information for them on a weekly and bi-weekly basis so they're aware of where we're at, what we're doing, and how to proceed from there. Okay, I apologize for the mumbling today. My tongue's not working the way it normally does.
Well, I'm going to challenge it a little more, Mark. I got a question for you that
Yes.
came in through the chat. Now, this one is specific to a community bank, but perhaps if you don't know it from that, it's just could answer generally. Have you ever worked with a community bank through a core system conversion? And if so, details on what worked and what you would do differently.
I would have to say no. I personally have not worked with the banking industry. We probably have folks on the team that may have, but when I talk about successful versus non-successful engagements, there's several shows out there. I'm sure everyone's seen them. One is the form of a bar, another one's a restaurant. They bring in a world famous expert who comes in and starts to tell these people how to successfully run their business, improve things, and save them from circling the drain. And if you've seen some of these episodes, a lot of times the people will stand there and absolutely refuse to do what this person is telling them to do. And you just sit there and you're like, okay, they're about to lose everything. They've made horrific mistakes. Here's someone who's incredibly successful at this, giving them suggestions and recommendations on how to be successful and save their company, and they don't want to do it. Okay, kids, those are the kinds of things that are almost beyond. Another example is very often finance departments are a reflection of the entire company. They simply present back and reflect back results and information. And if operations and certain other areas are not functional, accounting will reflect that, and it can often be blamed for it. It's the shoot the messenger thing. Folks need to understand that it's a full package, a comprehensive group effort, and things may need to change in other areas for their finance to be successful. Successful ones are folks admitting they're in over their head, they need the help, they'll welcome every recommendation, support it, at least give it a try, and regularly make recommendations. Okay, I hear what you're saying. Let's try it this way. Can we adjust it that way? Our team will respond as well to that. How about this? And we'll modify our approach to those as well. So hope I answered the question. If not, just beat me.
Well, and conceptually, you mentioned you've worked through some system conversions as well, and the types of experiences that are beneficial in order to know what kind of pitfalls are out there going forward. And I think that's really meaningful to a client who in a course of a career might not work through a system conversion or might not work through more than one system conversion. So might not have had all the experiences and all the lessons learned, whether for good or for bad, that you as a consultant and others within the team might have had the opportunity to work through and could be valuable to clients.
Absolutely. And in the meantime, they also have a company to run, which is a common theme throughout all of this is, business just doesn't get to stop while they focus on this one challenge. They still need to be able to run a company and do so successfully. So we come in, fill in the gap, and make sure that all happens the way they need it to as well.
Mark, that's an example of a special project and something would come in. What are some of the other special projects that you and the team have handled lately?
We had a client who was in the process of an IPO. Again, they had the staff they needed to run the daily business. They did not have the team they needed to prepare for an IPO. We brought in several folks at different levels and helped them prepare for that incredibly overwhelming task of achieving that goal. And they were able to do so, so that was great. We had another client who had purchased the NetSuite software. They'd been on it live about 10 months before we were brought in. Each individual department learned their specific module, but they weren't able to integrate the entire thing throughout the company. So there was friction between departments because what purchasing was doing was causing accounting grief, what the warehouse was doing was causing sales grief. And we came in and helped them provide a cohesive, integrated approach for the entire system and got everybody on the collective same page and got NetSuite functioning in a way that was promised in the sales pitch so many months before we got there. So that was enjoyable as well. And another client that we just kind of completed engagement, small team, they had survived COVID. They were able to keep most of their employees throughout the process, but they had simmered down to a smaller version of themselves. And in a 6-month period had landed 4 what you would call deals of a lifetime. They were on a rocket trajectory to increase their revenue by 400%. And they had a bookkeeper on staff for that. And so we were brought in to evaluate the existing team, analyze the ERPs that were available for them to utilize. We helped them choose an ERP system. We helped them implement an ERP system, and we helped them hire and train an entire accounting department to prepare for that growth. And so now they're set, they're ready to go, and the finance accounting area is not going to be the reason that there's going to be any challenge to the growth that they're prepared for.
Yeah, I'm sure that gave the owners and other leaders in the company a lot more time and attention to focus on serving those 4 deals of a lifetime as well.
For sure.
And when we talk about the investment for all the areas that we cover today, these are things that we consider when we're looking at pricing, knowing that a lot of them, it's a custom pricing approach because a lot of the services are custom, but we would anticipate that these different considerations would be pretty consistent, whether you're working with our firm or you're working with another firm that would provide these services. Things to consider that would help or would drive pricing one way or another. For outsourced payroll, our goal and many others are going to reach a flat monthly fee or some sort of consistent fee for you. Those factors that drive pricing one way or another would be the frequency that you're paying your employees, your employee count, state registration and compliance reporting. In the full outsourced accounting model, again, the goal would be to reach flat monthly fees for you to know what to expect each month. We do that by agreeing on a scope of work, what we'll perform, what your team would perform each month. Factors that drive that would be the transaction volume, the complexity of the tasks, the roles. Heather talked about the evolution of the services and, from transaction-based to CFO-based, what that scope of services would drive pricing, and the estimated time, the involvement of our team. Mark talked about interim and special projects. That pricing is going to vary based on your needs, the level of service or skills that the individuals who provide those services have. Obviously, the more complex, you would expect that the investment to be higher than the less complex tasks. Now, should you have any next steps, you have questions specific for all of us, we're going to be in each of the breakout rooms, but contact us directly if there's something that we can answer for you. There's also going to be ways to contact the firm through responses to the follow-ups that you get as a result of attending this webinar. So use any of those, and any of those contacts or questions will get routed to the right people, to us, and we'll hopefully get you a response or provide whatever insight we can to help you understand your situation.